Sitting on the table nervously, he smiled at her, but she gave him a death glare as she screeched the knife on the plate. Jungkook, I have a plan, he said in a hurry. Fine. Choose your words wisely, as they might be your last ones. Jungkook fake smiled and said, I know it sounds absurd, but let's just play along. My mom said to try going on a date with you and see if things turn out good or not. Jungkook, but obviously, the way I looked like yesterday, she thought that it was all my fault, and I'm not serious with my life, blah blah. So now she is forcing me to date you for the sake of my cursed future. Fine. And my future would be worse than yours if I were to marry you. He nodded forcefully because he held his life dearer than all of this. Jungkook. So if we keep playing like that, they're going to marry us one day without our permission. So let's just spend a day together. Fine. Together with you? When was the last time we did that and not returned home just like we did yesterday? Jungkook. Then let's not talk to each other. Play with our phones, eat, drink, whatever. And then just return home. Tell our parents that it didn't work out. And come up with some excuses. Genuine ones, of course. Wine stared at the wall for some seconds and thought, this was his genius idea to do nothing? Wine sighed and looked at him. Wine. Fine, but I will eat and you will pay. Jungkook. What? Why would I pay for you? Wine held the knife in her hand and said, to repay for what you did yesterday. She glared at him. Jungkook. What's with all the girls threatening me with the knives? He said to himself in a low tone. Fine, order what you want. He sighed angrily. 25 minutes later, Jungkook stared at the endless list of dishes Wine had ordered, his eyes widening with each new plate that arrived at their table. She picked at the food, sipping her drink, then ordering another one, and another. He glanced at his own empty glass, muttering under his breath. This wasn't part of the plan, he said, shaking his head. Wine's face flushed from all the drinks she was having, her eyes narrowing as if each bite she took was another taunt at him. Wine ordered yet another drink, glaring at him over the rim of her glass. Jungkook rolled his eyes and said, at this rate, you will drink the whole bar dry. Wine. Maybe I will. What's it to you? You said you'd pay. Jungkook. Yeah, but I didn't expect to feed a family or two. It was just for one person. He muttered, but he couldn't help but chuckle a bit. This was the most relaxed he had ever seen her. After a while, Wine's head began to droop forward, her eyes fluttering in a drunk daze. She looked up at Jungkook through her lashes. He was about to make a snarky comment, but for a second he found himself just staring in her drunk eyes, forgetting to breathe. His heart beat louder, his irritation replaced by a sudden flutter in his chest. She looked different, beautiful even. Fine. Why are you staring at me like that? He blinked and quickly looked away, his cheeks warming. Jungkook. Nothing. Just trying to clarify that if you pass out, I'm not helping you. Fine. Like I'd ever need your help. She leaned back in her chair, rubbing her eyes. Fine. God, why is everything spinning? Jungkook sighed. All right, that's enough for you. He stood up, making his way around the table to help her up. Come on, let's get you out of here before you cause more trouble. Fine. Don't touch me. She grumbled, but there was no real fight in her words. Her head lolled to the side, her hair falling in front of her face. Jungkook hesitated while brushing her hair. She looked at him, and they felt lost a second longer than they should have. He cursed himself internally for whatever he was doing. He made her stand up by giving her a shoulder. She was heavier than he expected, and she stumbled, nearly dragging them both down. Jungkook, wait, slow down. Somehow he managed to get her out of the restaurant and into his car. He put her in, trying not to notice how close they were, how her breath brushed against his skin. His pulse quickened, and he pulled away, shaking his head. Jungkook, what the hell? He asked himself in awe, and then sat on his seat. He was going to start the car, but he noticed her staring at him with those same dark eyes, drunk and hazy. His hand moved towards her cheeks on its own and caressed her cheek. Wine. Why are you so close? She mumbled, leaning towards him, her face inches away. Jungkook swallowed, trying to keep his voice steady. Jungkook, because you're not wearing your seatbelt, right? And you're really drunk. Fine. I'm not drunk. I know exactly what I'm doing. She whispered, reaching her hand against his cheek. The touch sent a bolt through him, and he felt himself leaning closer, almost involuntarily. Jungkook, wine don't. He started, but his words faltered when she leaned forward, her lips brushing against his. His mind screamed at him to stop, to pull away, but his body betrayed him, leaning in further, deepening the kiss. Suddenly, the car seemed too small, the space between them too hot. His hand reached up to cup her cheeks, and she leaned into him, her mouth opening under his. Before he knew it, they kissed desperately, clothes falling away piece by piece. Jungkook's lips moved against her neck, and wine tugged him closer. And then everything else melted away, until there was only them in the dark. The next morning arrived too quickly, sunlight spilling through the windows. She stirred, her head pounding with the ache of a hangover. She looked around and her eyes widened. She sat up too quickly. She looked down, realizing she was only in a bra and a coat covered on her torso. She pulled it up to her chest, her heartbeat hammering, as she tried to think about what happened. Bits and pieces came back to her. The restaurant, the drinks, Jungkook's stupid face, and then her eyes widened. She remembered the car, the kiss, and then, oh my god, she shouted, making Jungkook stir, but he was still asleep. He was shirtless, his dark hair messy against the seat that was bent all the way down. She grabbed her handbag and smacked him hard on the arm. Fine. Wake up, you idiot. Jungkook woke up in an instant. What the? Fine. What did you do? No. What did we? Jungkook blinked and looked at himself, then at her, and the reality of the situation hit him like a train. Jungkook. Oh crap. He muttered, his cheeks flushed red as he scrambled to sit up, rubbing the back of his neck awkwardly. Jungkook. There's no way we did it? Wine's face burned with humiliation. Wine. This is your fault. If you hadn't suggested that stupid plan, none of this would have happened. Jungkook. My fault? You were the one who got wasted and started whatever the hell that was last night. Wine. I did not. Wine started, then faltered, trying to remember the details clearly, but the fog in her mind made everything hazy. She let out a frustrated growl and buried her face in her hands. Wine. This is a nightmare. Jungkook ran a hand through his hair, sighing deeply. Jungkook, look, let's just calm down, okay? It's not like we planned for this to happen. Wine. Calm down? How am I supposed to calm down? Our families already think we're perfect for each other. This is going to make everything so much worse. Jungkook. It's not like we're announcing it in the public place. No one saw us, right? We don't have to say a word to our families. This never happened. Fine. You think it's that easy? We didn't go home the whole night. What if they find out somehow? Our mothers are practically detectives when it comes to us. He groaned. Yeah, but what other choice do we have? Tell them that we slept together and hope they just laugh it off. Fine. Fine. We pretend like it never happened. But if you even breathe a word about this, Jungkook raised his hands in surrender. I won't. Trust me, I have zero interest in reliving whatever this is. The room fell silent. They sighed. Jungkook, so, do you want some coffee or something? I think we both need it. Vine hesitated, but then her headache reminded her of her desperate need for caffeine. Vine, fine, but don't think this means we're friends now or anything. Jungkook, I know it already, he muttered, grabbing his shirt from the back seat. He glanced at her, catching a brief glimpse of her ruffled hair and still flushed cheeks before he turned away, his cheeks blushing after seeing her. As he walked out of the car, Vine put off the coat and took her dress from the back seat. Before she could wear it, Jungkook opened the door of the car and said, I forgot to ask about the flavor. His eyes and mouth widened after looking at her. She shouted loudly, and he closed the door immediately. Vine, Jungkook, you. Jungkook, I'm sorry, he shouted from outside the car. A few minutes later, Jungkook returned with two mugs of coffee. He handed one to Vine without meeting her eyes, and she took it. The embarrassment after what happened was too much. They sat there in silence, sipping their drinks. Eventually, Vine broke the silence. Vine. So, what now? We just go back to hating each other? Jungkook glanced at her, a small smirk playing on his lips. Jungkook. I think we're pretty good at that. Despite herself, Vine felt a tiny smile tugging at her lips. Vine. Yeah, maybe we are. She chuckled. But don't think this changes anything. You're still the same arrogant jerk you were yesterday. He chuckled, setting down his mug. Jungkook. And you're still the insufferable brat who can't stand me. They looked at each other, and this might be the first time they laughed with each other like that. Jungkook. I was thinking that our parents are old, they have experience. Maybe they know things better than us. Vine. You're saying they made the right decision? Jungkook. We don't know, and we won't know until we try. Vine. And how do we try? By marrying each other just like they're asking us to? Jungkook. No, by going on a date. And I mean date, not the ones we had before. Because we were certainly not ourselves, and those cannot be called dates. So, what do you say? He was hesitating so much, but she was just adoring his stupidity. She chuckled so hard, making him embarrassed. Jungkook, what? It's not like I'm proposing you. I don't want it myself. I just want to make my mom happy. Okay. Wine cut him off. Fine. Let's try it out. For the sake of our parents. Jungkook blushed and looked away. Jungkook, I will drop you home, he said. His cheeks were blood red. Wine smiled, looking at him, and just stayed embarrassedly silent during the whole drive.